Puerto Rican kid, bald head, loves snakes, loves Blizzy, Sergio Chicon.
Yeah. What up, Pa?
Peace. Welcome to the DBS Podcast. It's your boy Sergiochicon, aka Blizzy Chicon. That shit whack. That means always gonna be dirtbag shit podcast. The DBS Podcast.
First of all, I want to compliment you on the brick wall in the back. That's very nice.
Oh, thanks.
This is your new pad?
Yeah, this is a pad in Spain for now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, bro.
So I have I want to start off on a very honest note. We have recorded a podcast, I would say 3 or 4 months ago, and we had a great talk. And I would say like 5 minutes into it, because you're sharp as a tack, you asked me, "Hey, are we recording this?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Turns out we weren't, Tamer, as you probably figured out. And you know what?
Hey,
I
it
lied.
happens.
I was harboring this guilt. I blamed it on the malfunction. It wasn't. I forgot to press record.
Hey, that happens, you know?
Yo, if that's not dirtbag shit, I don't know what is. The fact that I held on to that lie for 4 months.
Dude, that's great. Hey, we're in a pandemic, yo. I mean, seriously, if that's the worst lie, what is lying anymore anyway?
I know. I don't even know if I lied to you. I definitely bent the truth though. I was like, yeah, something was off. We got to redo it. But great talking to you. I'm glad we got to catch up. You know what, man? What that kind of represents what a lot of people are going through. I was definitely squishing too much.
Sure.
Into the day.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I forgot. But it pained me. I was hungover from that because it was such a good talk with you. So I'm happy to have you
cool.
back.
I'm glad.
I know a lot.
Yeah, we'll make a better one.
What was that?
I said we'll have a better one now.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first had you on a few months back, I remember on the podcast you had mentioned that
Are you recording right now? Yeah, you are. I see it.
I'm recording. Yeah, I'm recording. Yeah. Deja vu. My palms just got sweaty.
I see it now. I see
I'm
it.
not playing. I got it on pre-record. I've been signed up for 2 hours just sitting here like this.
That's hilarious.
But I remember what you said. Let's not mention anything about getting married. You were gonna pop the question to your girl. So congratulations to you and your now wife. Tied the knot out in Spain.
Yeah.
And you had a bit of a rough time traveling over there.
Madness.
You were in California when we first did the podcast.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, you were traveling to Spain to pop the question.
Exactly.
Happened?
I was in New York and I knew I was going to go to Spain. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with my mom because she's by herself out there. So I did the 2-week quarantine. I stayed at a little Airbnb. And at that time, that Airbnb in LA was the most isolated I ever felt. Because it was like, even during a pandemic, people in LA are flaky, and I left New York. I got back to LA. I'd been gone for a couple of years. I just got back to LA. It was the middle of a pandemic. I found an Airbnb, but it was way smaller in real life than it looked on the site.
Of course.
But it was affordable. I thought it was affordable just because it was a pandemic.
Yeah.
So I was in this really teeny tiny Airbnb. Like it was smaller than a room. It was crazy.
You're thinking to yourself, how the fuck am I supposed to shadow box and masturbate in here? You know what I'm saying?
Right? Exactly. Oh, dude, I had my one of those egg weights. I had my egg weights. I was in there. I was using my egg weights to shadow box. I had them. Yeah.
What do you think about them?
They're okay. I like them. I think it helps with speed for sure. It's like anything, man. If you're consistent, I think it'll make a difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like them. I like the I didn't know how to use them at first. I like the idea of having, some substance in your hands.
Sure.
to assist with the speed. But those things could be like a novelty. You leave them in the bag, you don't play with them again. You know how many things I bought like that? But I have been consistent with them. I think the trick is when you get the egg weights, not going too heavy, 2 to 3 pounds, and you're good. You don't need to go heavier than that shit. Because now you got like 5 pound weights. You're not gonna ever shadow box with 5 pound weights. So I don't even know if they come that heavy. What I'm saying is, I think if this is anything like that, you have to be consistent with them. You know, just tell yourself 100%. This is gonna be part of the routine. Anyway, so you're in a small ass fucking Airbnb,
tiny Airbnb, waiting to see. Tiny room, waiting to make sure I'm cool before I go visit my mom, because I was worried about getting her sick, because I'd already had it at this point. I had COVID already. I had it in March.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had it, but I hadn't taken the test yet. So while I was in LA, they started doing the drive-up tests. So I went and did that. Turned out I had it. And I was like, cool, I have it. I know now. And they said, you have both antibodies in your body, but still do all the social distancing. I got back to my mom's. The whole time I was talking to my wife over Bumble. We met on Bumble.
Yeah.
And I sort of used, you know, when I get trapped like that, I was an only child. And whenever I get trapped or whenever I don't have money, I used to use the internet to travel. You know what I mean? Like I would look up YouTube videos of places I wanted to go to, or I would look up Airbnb places and like, oh, I want to go there someday. And I've always just been like that. Like I use technology to help me fantasize. Right. And that's what I was doing. So on dating apps, you could even go further, because you can use this thing called Passport when you're dating, and it'll take you there as if you're living in Barcelona. So that's what I did. And we met, and I told her I was, going to Barcelona soon, but my plans had gotten changed, but we really hit it off, man. And, when you're in a pandemic and you've got all this crazy stuff going on and your whole life has been taken away, we just got real naked, real quick, like emotionally. We were just real honest with each other. And I just like fell for her really hard, and she fell for me. It was great, man. It was like a movie.
Yeah.
And then I was real excited. I had my ticket to go to Barcelona. And the day that my ticket was set to leave was the day they changed the law where they said they're allowing Americans into Europe. They said they're going to let Americans into Europe if you have a European relative, if you're staying with a European, if you had COVID before. There were all these like fluctuating rules, But I was like, oh, I'm cool. I already had it. I have this letter from the doctor saying I had it. Right. I'm not staying in a hotel. I'm staying with somebody, and I had relatives in Europe. I thought it was cool.
Right.
I got in I flew in LA. They said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Spain." They're like, "You can't go to Spain." I go, "Yes, I can." And they made me fill out this information on the website in Spain. I'm cool. Here's this QR code and everything from the government in Spain. They're like, "Oh, okay, you're cool." Okay. So then I flew to London, everything was cool, but I was still a little bit nervous. And then from London to Barcelona, real quick flight. I flew into Barcelona. I'm all excited. I'm talking to her on the phone as I'm going through customs, and I'm like, I'll see you in a few minutes. And she's all excited. I'm all excited. We had dinner plans and everything. And then I get to the border, and the cop's like, who are you here to see? And I'm like, my girlfriend. Barcelona.
So you get like, all that way. And they were like, man. Hold up.
Nope. You're like, you're not coming in. They had changed the law. They made the law even more strict that day.
They were changing the law every 5 hours.
Every 5 hours, exactly. Yeah. That the night before they said Americans can come in. That day they said no more. And especially in Spain, there was sort of this like political struggle between the government of Catalonia that owns Barcelona and then Madrid. And there's always been that tension because, Spain used to be owned by Franco, and he was a fascist. There, like that's when all the big famous American writers used to go to Spain. They were like supporting the freedom fighters at the time. Right. So Barcelona's got this crazy history. And then this cop's like, you got to come with me. And I'm like, okay. And there was a police station in the airport, and dude, that's where I stayed.
That is scary, even though you know you're gonna be fine. At first, there's a huge inconvenience, but it almost feels like you get caught with drugs, right? Like,
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It's like, yeah, do I have drugs on me?
Yeah,
I just have
it was like
antibodies.
that.
I don't have any cocaine on me. Am I okay here?
Yeah, it was. The cool thing though is a couple of the cops, when they searched my bag, like an extra search, and then they saw the boxing gloves and I had some headgear in there, and they're like, "Oh, you box?" And then two of the cops got real nice with me because they were boxers, so they were really nice to me. But you know, I had to call her over the phone and say, "Hey, they're not letting me in," and I had to spend the night in jail, in this jail cell. I made a pillow out of my boxing gloves because the bed was so nasty. And in the jail, I was looking out this cage, and there was a Starbucks downstairs where people leaving the airport were stopping in and getting Starbucks. So I was like looking at the cage. It was terrible, dude. Terrible.
So what kind of liberty did you have in there? Were you just like, you were like locked down?
Locked down hard. They didn't even give us food. They gave us food from a vending machine, and they took my passport, and I couldn't do nothing, dude. And then the next day, huh?
How long did you have to deal with that?
That's the thing, dude. For me, it was just one night. There was a dude from Tunisia, and they said he had to stay there a week because that's how long he had to wait for another flight to go to Tunisia. Fortunately, we're from big countries. So they were like, okay, well, we found a flight for you tomorrow. So the next day, they even police escorted me onto the plane like I was Hannibal Lecter. And then they handed the passport to the airline attendant and said, you can't give the passport to him. You got to give him to customs in England.
So and then I got to England.
Yep. And then England was my layover. So when I got to London, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to get a hotel and get some rest. All the hotels were closed. So I had to sit in a chair in Heathrow because my flight wasn't until the next day. So now I had to sit in an airport chair, and the internet went out. So I was sitting in a chair for 18 hours, and I could feel my brain slipping, bro. I was just slipping.
And now, you're frustrated, you're hungry, you're tired.
Yeah.
Your hair's growing out the side. You know, dudes like us, we're bald.
We hate that.
That's one thing about you. You're like me. We're bald dudes, but we keep it fresh.
Yeah.
We don't move around to you. I never move around to you. You ever let it grow out?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. If my hair's growing out?
Yeah.
If my hair's growing out, I'm depressed.
Yeah,
I'm depressed. If you see me, yeah.
I shave my head like I'm brushing my teeth every day. It's like part of it. You know, yeah. I don't move around like a dirtbag fucking comedy booker, you know, with the fucking, you know, I feel like all the dirtbag comedy bookers have the U-shape, you know, hair and neck and just like that.
Totally.
Totally. Man.
It was wild, dude. And then I got home back to LA and to my mom's place. And there I started doing research. I was not going to take it. I was like, nope. I mean, I came from immigrants, you know, so in Egypt, my mom used to always tell me these stories where for like 2.5, 3 years, she would go to this government office and be like, hey, we're trying to get our paperwork to go to America. They're like, your husband's name is Muhammad. And she goes, yeah. And they're like, but your name is Jewish. And she goes, yeah. They're like, oh, well, you're not Muslim? She's like, no. They're like, did you convert? She's like, no. And then they'd be like, oh, we can't find your paperwork.
Yo,
yeah, dude.
Super dirtbag.
Super dirtbag. And so my mom, though, was a rock. And she went every day. She said she went every day for like 2 years. And finally, this one dude told her and said, look, they're not going to give you your paperwork. They're not going to give it to you because you're not Muslim. And my mom's like, I'm going to keep coming. And the guy just looks at my mom and goes, why are you doing this to yourself? She's like, what's your name? And he goes, George. She goes, my uncle's name is George. And it was just that. My uncle's name is George. And the dude just goes, hang on. And he went and got her paperwork and boom, she went. And we got our paperwork to go to America. And it reminded me of this guy that his name is Robert McKee that talks about screenwriting. And he goes, it's good for comics to know this. He said, it's not important for a character to be sympathetic. It's important for a character to be empathetic. You don't want to write a character where people go, I like him. You want to write a character where people go, he's like me. And I think that's what happened with my mom. When she said, "Your name's George, my uncle's name is George," it made that cat look at her and go, "She's like me," you know, or her uncle. She could be my niece, and then and so when I got back from New York, I was like, "That's what I come from," and just because they kicked me out of Spain, that's not going to be it. Like, no, I'm going to find another way. Did a bunch of research, found out about Gibraltar. It was like this tiny country where John Lennon and Yoko Ono got married.
Right.
And it was like it's part of Spain, but it's owned by England. It's right on the tip. It's like you could see Morocco from Gibraltar.
Probably
And
beautiful over there.
beautiful. And there were no COVID deaths, great tracing, and they were still allowing Americans in. But a lot of Americans didn't know about it. So I looked it up and I got a ticket. The day I got back, I got a ticket to go back again.
These guys resourceful.
Hell yeah, man. But the second time back, we both had PTSD. You know, like every time I was at a layover, she was like, "Are you there? Are you okay? Is everything going all right?" Because she was flying from Barcelona to Malaga. And then from Malaga, she was going to get a car and drive to Gibraltar, a 2-hour drive. Yeah. And so when I got through the airport into Gibraltar, and we opened the door, I saw her before she saw me.
You guys are like running in slow motion.
Yeah, man.
Super romantic.
It was crazy, dude. It was like a fucking commercial and a movie at the same time. It was great.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy that it was a nice ending to it.
Thank you, bro.
You guys reconnected smooth enough. You know, it wasn't
smooth enough. Yeah. We still were stuck there for 2 weeks. We were supposed to be there 3 days.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, we were waiting for her birth certificate to come, and all the delivery companies weren't shipping to Gibraltar. Right. So we ended up going from Airbnb to Airbnb to hotel, and we just kept toughing it out. And then we finally did it. And then we had to walk across the border, and then we drove to Barcelona because we didn't want to go through the airport.
Paranoid.
Yeah, man. Because even after you get married, they don't just give you a marriage certificate. They give you some other piece of paper, and then they say, "Oh, you'll get your marriage certificate in 2 weeks." So I had to use this other piece of paper that technically wasn't the paper I needed across the border. Yeah.
It's almost like a learner's permit for driving.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like, but you can't do that shit past 9 p.m. Is that
exactly.
sort of,
I like that.
right? Like that sort of
shit. Yeah.
Oh.
Training wheel life.
Uh-huh.
It was a cool experience, though.
How's the stand-up scene in Barcelona?
There's not much of a scene, to be honest. Yeah, but it's been I know, nowhere, right? But the nice thing in Europe is where my wife is from, an area called Malmo in southern Sweden. It's 20 minutes from Copenhagen, that has a huge comedy scene, and Gothenburg and Stockholm have good comedy scenes and English-speaking comedy scenes. And then, of course, Berlin is really close too, and that's got a great comedy scene. And then, and then flights are, once you're in Europe, flights are dirt cheap. I mean, Spain to Sweden is like $80, $60 here, $50 there. Wow. And if you book it ahead enough, it's even cheaper. So you can really, as a comic in Europe, you could do a lot.
You can move, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of shows here.
Did you recently drop a comedy album?
I had an album, no, but I had a piece of my album back onto Sirius XM. Okay. And I signed for a second album. My second album, we're going to record it this fall, hopefully. So I just signed on to do a second album. Huh?
Where are you going to do it?
Last time we did it was in Seattle. I'm not sure where we're going to do it yet. I was thinking either Portland, but I'd love to do it in New York. And the reason why we did it in Seattle last time is because Uproar Records, they had like a good relationship with this club in Seattle, and it was a basement club, and they liked it for sound. They really like the sound in basement clubs. But we got plenty of those in New York. Yeah. So I want to, especially after COVID, I want my friends and my family to be in the audience. I think when I did my last album, there weren't a lot of friends there. It was mostly fans and people I kind of didn't know. But I did a lot of press before the album, like on morning TV, TV news shows and stuff like that in Seattle. And it was good. We sold out. But now after COVID, I want my family and my friends to be around.
Yeah. I've never been to Seattle, but I hear it's a dope city. I would like to visit.
Yeah, it's cool. And there's some good clubs there, good comics. It's a cool scene.
Yeah, I have a feeling it reminds me of one of those. It reminds me like what I hear about it. It sounds like a dope comedy city. Like people like comedy out there.
Yeah,
100%. Saying that it's like what? Because I worked at Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, and man,
I love Madison.
Oh God, man, it's like the best
comedy club on State.
Yeah, it's like
that club's the best.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire. You know, I imagine that Seattle's a lot like that. Am I right? Like
it is. I mean, Madison, I think, is a little bit more influenced by the college, and it's real liberal. I think Seattle's like that too, but Seattle's a little bit more hippie than Madison.
Yeah.
That club is special, though. Comedy Club on State is probably my favorite club I've ever performed at.
Me too.
In Madison.
Yeah,
I love that club.
Denver Comedy Works. You ever worked there?
Yeah, Comedy Works is dope.
Yeah, that shit was a lot of fun.
In Denver?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado's sick.
Yeah, it's so funny. I see you got the overthrow shirt. When I was in Colorado working there,
yeah.
I'm in a small town having coffee, and someone knocks on a window, and it's some girl that used to take the overthrow classes.
Oh, wow.
Colorado, just to visit, and she moved out there. She liked it so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sports person's town for sure.
Yeah, she had goggles, fucking skis on her back.
Yeah, man. I'm not made for that, man. I'm Egyptian and from California. I'm like a human lizard. Mm-hmm. I can't handle the snow stuff, man. That's not for me.
Did you were you affected by the air out there, like the altitude?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like especially in the beginning, it takes a while to get acclimatized. But when I first got there, I tried to go snowboarding like my first few days, and I was drinking and I wasn't sleeping well yet, and I got myself sick.
And all fucked up.
Yeah, man, it's serious. Altitude sickness is no joke.
Yeah.
It's serious.
Yeah. It's wild, right? That some fighters go to the mountains to train like that, and it takes them like a week for their blood to get used to all that and the oxygen levels to acclimate.
It's rad though. It's really cool. Science is dope.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember playing golf, and I felt like the bionic man. The balls would go so much farther.
Oh,
I was hitting.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, because there's less. I don't know if it's because the less oxygen in the air, so the balls fly further. But it was just like it was so satisfying to hit a golf ball and watch it go so much further. It was dope.
Yeah. You're like bang.
Yeah.
Have you been keeping up with the boxing lately? There's some dirtbag matches out there, Pop.
I know. There's some crazy shit going on. That stuff with that YouTube dude.
It represents the times so
Jake
well.
Paul.
Yeah.
It does, dude. You know what though? That knockout was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about
nice.
it that Jake Paul respects the sport. He's a student of boxing. Like he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
The only
Student
thing
is the key word.
Yeah, he was a mismatch. That was a mismatch.
Yeah, big time.
That was a big. Even though that guy, Jake Paul, only been boxing, 2 years, you could tell he's just so much more involved in it than Nate. What's his name? Nate Robinson.
I think so.
Yeah.
Nate or Nick?
It's Nate. It's Nate. I don't know if
Nate
the last
Robinson.
But the basketball player that got stretched out. I felt bad for him. That was ugly.
That was real ugly.
And, people have to, these sanctioning bodies, because that was sanctioned by, I believe, the WBC organization. That's like, they give out belts to real boxers. These people sign up for these fights, but something like that could end real ugly. And I was worried about that guy. I thought, who knows if he's even okay? You know, that was like he walked into that shot, fell flat on his face. I mean, he might still be dealing with the repercussions of being so careless and walking into that right hand.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was careless.
If they continue doing that, because trained fighters, guys who've been fighting all their lives get hurt. You know, these guys who've been boxing a year or two, going on that level, you know, a 6-round fight, small gloves, it can end ugly. And so they have to be very careful. I understand this is generating a lot of attention and a lot of money, but I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but they should be some guidelines in order, a little more restrictive.
I could feel it, fam. You know, when you go into a party, when you were young, you go into a party and you just felt bad vibes, bad energy, like something bad's going to happen at this party. That's how I feel right now with some of the stuff that's happening. You know, it reminds me of the 90s when they used to have those talk shows. And I think her name was Jenny something. She was a good looking talk show lady. And she had on this dude. The episode was, I want to tell my crush that I'm in love with him or I'm in love with her.
Yeah.
And one of them was a dude.
Guy.
Yeah. And the other guy was straight. And the dude killed him after the show.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shit's going to happen if they're not careful.
That's a good comparison, because that was in the height of a bunch of talk shows trying to outdo themselves, trying to outdo the other. So now where, you know, people are desperate for entertainment as well, you know, and we've kind of went to the internet and, you know, and follow these people and, you know, their lives and, oh, that person's going to fight, you know, so it's driving a lot of attention to these spectacles. They're spectacles.
Totally.
And listen, I don't feel like they shouldn't exist. And I'm not like a super boxing purist. I am, in the sense where I'd rather watch two boxers who I love and respect get a shot, like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence against each other. I would like to watch a fight like that.
Yeah.
That's where my heart is at. I don't care to watch, you know, a basketball player and a YouTuber. That's not my thing. But I do. I don't knock it, because if it attracts attention and done responsibly, I think it could ultimately be good for the sport.
100%.
You know, 100%. And I feel the same way about fitness boxing gyms. You know, we got boxing gyms that there's not really any fighters coming out of there. Maybe they're younger people who don't want to fight, but they want to get in shape in a different way, and they like putting on the gloves and hitting the back. I think that's another way to channel traffic, get attention towards the sport. The alternative ways, you know, there's different ways of doing it, and I think it's all good, but it has to be done responsibly with some, you know, rules.
100%, man. I think like right now we're at a dangerous time, because we got comics are great live, but they haven't been great online. And now you got these YouTubers who are great online, and they realize these fans love them so much that they'll go and see them live. So now they're trying to think of stuff to do, because when they were doing stand-up, that wasn't going well. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And then they were losing fans when fans would go watch them and go, they're not funny at all. They're just funny over this medium. It's a completely different medium. So now they're trying to figure out what to do with these people. And I'll never forget this one IT guy told me. He goes, if you're on a site and you get to use it for free, you're the product. And I was like, oh shit, he's right. That's why we get tracked, we get followed. We are what's being hunted by companies right now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And they don't care if people die on the way. They don't care.
Yeah, no, there's such a shift in how we live our lives and how we conduct our business and how we're looked upon. And there's a price for it. If you think it's free, you got another thing coming. If you think you're getting entertained for free and there's no repercussions to it, there is. There's a psychological effect on you and how you perceive the world. and there's also a cost because they're constantly tracking your every move. And if you're looking towards a site and they're, saying, oh, this guy likes boxing, they're gonna keep on darting, they're gonna keep on throwing boxing stuff at you. And within those cracks, it's shit you don't need in your life or in your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
man.
You gotta be careful and make sure that you have something that belongs to you, that you're disciplined outside of that, because we're all guilty of it. We're all, victims of it, and we're all conditioned in some sort of way or another.
100%,
There's no
dude.
way around it, man.
Yeah, I had a friend who said the internet is at its best when used for information and at its worst when used for affirmation. And that's what started that's when the problem started happening. When people would go online to find the truth, everything was cool. When people started to go online to validate that what they were saying was true, that's when all the fake stuff started coming out. Because they didn't even care if they had the truth. They just wanted to say, I'm right, here's an article that says it. And now it's just it's dangerous times. I think it's going to end up being more dangerous for the government than for us. I think the government's poking a big bear with a stick right now.
Yeah, it's a weird time because, even conspiracy theorists have a lane that people are actually taking serious. Like, before we used to look at conspiracy theorists like a freak show, almost like the daytime talk show. Like, oh yeah, these wackos, this is entertaining. Now there's people like signing on to that and like, oh yeah, I'm subscribing to that shit. That's what I believe in. And I'm like, wow, some of it's just off the hinge, off the hook, really. And it's scary because when someone has that sort of awakening and they feel like that's their truth, it could be super dangerous when they're like informed, on either side, but especially with something like that, because it's so I don't know how to reverse it. Like when someone there's no proof in it, that it's like it's a collection of information, but maybe a nugget of truth actually. And then people are like, oh yeah, that's what I want. And there's a lane now. It's a lane that I've never seen taken serious before. Now I see it.
Yeah. I think it's all about it. I think the real problem is that there's a whole lot of people out there who feel like they don't belong. Yeah. And they always say that Maslow had that hierarchy of needs where they said food and shelter was at the bottom, and they changed it. Now they said the bottom is belonging and then food and shelter. They even did these studies with these chimps. And on one side was this fur that smelled like their mom, and on the other side was food. And if you went into one or the other, the gate would close. And these chimps would rather starve and be with the smell of their mom than eat food and be separated from family. And so this idea about belonging, even those Nazis in South Carolina kept going, we will not be replaced. We will not be replaced. And then you had these women in the South and Midwest voting against feminism and it wasn't that they were anti-female. They were just saying the way those women talk about the future, they're not including housewives. So they felt like they were being erased, like in Back to the Future. So it's like when these people get into these conspiracy theories, I don't even know if they believe that the earth is flat so much as they feel like, oh my God, if I become a part of this Facebook group, I can become part of this family.
Right.
Like in New York, you're not just a New Yorker, you're a New Yorker, you're a member of Overthrow, you're a member of the comedy community. You've got like these multiple families that you're in. And I think that's all these conspiracy theory places are. It's like, hey, I could be a family with these people that don't think they're better than me because they're not getting an education either. They don't need the sites that they take me to. I understand all the words. There's a lot of pictures. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. I think they just want to belong. It's like put a handkerchief on a dog, the dog gets more happy.
Right.
And that's what these fools are. They're just human rescue animals with like vests. The flat earth vest, or like
it's super dirtbag and wild.
Total dirtbag.
It's super dirtbag and wild. I know, man, I didn't even speak to you or when Biden won. Yo, there's not many people I know who despise Trump as much as you. I despise it too. I think he's a supreme dirtbag, but I love listening to you smash him because every chance you go in like that, gang.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. I see. Here's the thing. I always tell my friend, like, when you immigrate from a country that hated you, when we left Egypt kind of on the run. They didn't like us because we were mixed religion, and that's not okay in Egypt. And
Right.
when you leave in a country where a corrupt country, where a lot of the people don't like you, is like leaving a family where the dad used to beat you because he was an alcoholic, and then you get adopted by this new dad called America, and America's like the Brady Bunch dad, and then in comes Trump, and he's got alcohol in his breath, and I'm like, oh, he smells like Egypt dad. So I know, I smelled Trump before I saw Trump. The way he was acting, for me, it wasn't just that he was acting like a dictator. And to me, a dictator was a dude in a book. To me, it was a memory. Like, I know what guys who say the things, what guys act like who say the things he says. The stuff he says is what Mubarak said in Egypt. The stuff he says is what these fundamentalists would say in Egypt. So it was like, I knew what he was from day one.
He's an absolute maniac, man, and just fucking lies, right?
100%.
It got to the point where, there's a lot of fixing to do, but I just couldn't stand to look at his face or hear that noise anymore. It felt like noise, like constant noise. And I was like, yo, we need this motherfucker out.
Yeah, dude. Oh, it's crazy. Can you imagine this is what he's like at 72? And I was like, I'm way more chill now. And I was like, if that's what he's like at 72, what was he like at 20? Like, how big of a dirtbag was this dude when he was 22, 23 years old? And then it made me do the math. And you know what I figured out? If he's 72 now, he was just turning 21 at the peak of the hippies in the 60s.
Yeah.
So when he wanted to get his dick wet, all the hippie chicks, he's like, I got money, I got power. They're like, we don't care about that. It's the 60s. We don't. It was the first time in history America didn't care about money, and that's when he had his strongest boners, and he couldn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's got this stunted growth. He acts like he just got out of college.
Yeah. He's a supreme dirtbag that needed to be out, and there was such a I just felt the energy, like just a sense of relief, like, okay, give us that, give us that, and now we can move forward. And I think Biden's a dirtbag too, but anything is better than that shit.
Politicians are bad, but I think Biden is at the age where at least he wants to have a legacy, and I think, though, it's funny because when they show those private conversations between him and his son being in rehab, what I saw was a good dad.
Yeah.
I saw a good dad and a decent human being. That doesn't mean that I don't think the government's corrupt as shit and that politics isn't corrupt as shit. I do think that. But at its core, I look at him and I go, he's a decent human being in a dirty business. Whereas I looked at Trump and I go, wow, this is the first time I saw someone even more dirty than politics itself. That's what Trump was. Trump was more dirty than the dirty thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was.
He just it was just the lies. Like, it was just one, and I couldn't believe it. There's compilations of him saying one thing and just dismissing the other. It's just, you can't make this shit up. It's this ongoing, and it's ridiculous because a lot of the people, the hardcore supporters, will do the same thing. It's like, how do you move forward when you try to create a dialogue and there's just like lies? You can't move forward. They're just holding on to certain things, and it's just very odd. It's like it's almost like a mental health issue.
That's rich. It is mental, 100%, and it's also it's a rich people style of doing dirt. Like, that's because everybody look how he made his money in New York. He would build these big buildings and he would be in business with people that had a lot less money than him. with these small business owners that were in construction. And then he'd say, I don't remember you saying that. You want to sue me? Sue me. And then he just make them sit in court until they ran out of money. He put so many small business owners out of business when he was building his real estate empire. That's the way he's doing his work the same way he's always done his work, which is lies, manipulation, and cheating. You know, like I wrote this tweet when we kicked him out and Biden won and he wouldn't leave. I'm like, now America knows what it feels like to be a woman that says no to Trump.
I know that.
He doesn't take right, like, and it's true. He's showing us who he is, and you know, and his supporters are just. I think his supporters are like heroin addicts, you know, and like a lot of people are like, oh, can you believe they still vote for Trump? I'm like, yeah, I can still believe it. Like if a town voted to get rid of crack, I wouldn't be surprised if the crackheads voted to keep it. You know what I mean? They're addicted to him. But once he's gone, they'll go through their withdrawals, and I think we'll get some normalcy back.
It's funny how people people hated that motherfucker. Like he's probably gonna go down as the worst president ever. But the people who loved him fucking loved him. It was like being in this abusive relationship. It's like, no, that's my daddy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It was wild.
It's weird how people hang on to these things. You know, I saw an interview with Floyd Mayweather, and I saw like something similar about how accepting people could be because you're really good at one thing, but you know, and there was bits of like gems in the interview. First of all, he's like, you ever listen to Floyd Mayweather speak?
Yeah, he's a trip.
He's a trip. He starts every sentence with this. He goes, but the thing, what he starts with, he says, what the fuck was he saying that? First of all, it's like, oh, yeah, Oscar De La Hoya, he was a hell of a fighter. You know, everyone's a hell of a fighter. He got these go-to phrases.
Totally.
And the thing is this, you know, I got money. You know, I'm a king. He calls himself a king. He says, I'm a king. And if I'm at a feast, you know, I'm gonna eat what I gotta eat. And then, you know, people want my leftovers. By all means, go ahead and eat. Go ahead and eat. And he's not talking about food. He's talking about women. Like, yo, he's a super like misogynist. Like to the point where I'm like, I couldn't. It was cringeworthy. And he was doing it on a hip hop, you know, platform. Nori is got a Noriega from CNN. He's a rapper. He got Drink Champs podcast, very popular. I like to watch it. It's a good podcast, but the energy in the room was weird because I can even when Noriega was interviewing him, you could tell he was like nervous about being like around Floyd. Like, you know, he put him up on this on this platform, and this praise, you know, for this dude. Like, listen, Floyd is one of the best fighters ever, but there's so much that needs to be like corrected. The way he behaves is like it's wild, and it's specifically, you know, how he talks about women. Like that shit is like bananas to me. You know how
I agree.
You know, and I don't want to go on, you know, with the past on how he's got, you know, arrested for, you know, beating on his ex-wife and everything. But you know what? That's the shit that pops out of me when I hear him speak, especially if you've been locked up for something like that. You know, your attitude and behavior should be a little different. It should be a little more humble. And it's not. He's like talking about collecting women. Like he got a harem of women. Like in more than one occasion in the interview, he said that. And I was like, wow. Like, so far out there with that bullshit. I mean, you know, it's disgusting. It's like,
I agree.
How the fuck does and it's all, you know, it's all induced with the power he has for money and the praise, and people just accepted it, you know. And that's an impression on the boxing community. It leaves an impression on young people. It leaves an impression on Black athletes. Like it's a very it's a very influential, impactful thing that is super dirtbag. Like I can't listen to too much of that guy because of his views. You know, it's like, yo, dogs, you have daughters.
Yeah, man.
You know, it's weird.
It's crazy.
It's
It
weird.
makes sense though. Like it's almost like what they used to say. It takes a village to raise a kid. It takes nobody to raise an asshole. Like I think when you get real rich, when you get real powerful or real famous, nobody has nothing bad to say. And all of a sudden, all the mirrors in your house are broken. You don't know. You got a funhouse mirror in front of you. You could say crazy shit and no one's checking you. No one's telling you you're wrong. You think just because you're great at one thing, that you're great at everything. Even Michael Jordan sucked at baseball. You can't, just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be great at other things. But he's not going to hear it from anybody because he's paying. Everybody around him gets paid by him.
Yeah.
So they don't want to mess up the cash flow. So they're not going to tell him when he's looking stupid.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. He always goes back to his cash too. Like he can't be a happy dude, like thinking like that. You gotta feel like a void when you put down half of humanity like that and you objectify them. I have a feeling there's got to be a void of like a void that he obviously feels. You know, to always go back to be like, well, I made. You know, the thing is this: I made $100 million in the sport of boxing. And and everything goes back to how much money he made, how much money. Yo, but what about what's the soul in this human being? You know what I'm saying? Like that, no soul. It's weird, man. And this is, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his boxing. I'm not talking about
too.
like, I'm a fan of Philly Shell. I don't really have a lot bad to say about how he conducted his boxing business. But outside of that, when I speak, he's about the most uninteresting person I have ever fucking met. Like super,
100%.
And sometimes I'm like, wow, the way he's conducted his business, the way he made himself on the A side from Pretty Boy Floyd to Money Mayweather. I think it's clever. I think the way he adopted the villain attitude or persona, and the way he fought these guys and the way he's manipulated, the fact that he's doing an exhibition match now, I commend him on all that because he was in a rough and hard sport that doesn't give a fuck about you. You get hurt in boxing, there's no retirement fund. No one gives a fuck about you. So he flipped the script, and that in itself is very admirable and impressive. But outside of boxing, man, it's hard to like comprehend. You know what I'm saying? It's
He doesn't even understand what he did. He talks about his money instead of I feel like if I was him, that's the stuff I'd be talking about. I'd be talking about how I broke the system. I'd be talking about how I reinvented boxing defense.
Well, in a sense, he does. In a sense, he does. But it's in bits and pieces. It's just his ego is so big that it's
eclipsed.
Yeah,
it's eclipsed by the money talk.
Right, exactly. It has such a hold on him, that it has to be peppered with. He got to remind everyone how much money he made. He got to remind how much jewelry he had, and like the persona is not even fun. Like it's almost like it's super. Like I can see if it's like a persona like, oh, that's fun, but it's corny. It's a bit corny, and when it comes to like women, that shit is abusive, and I'm not gonna say it like, oh, he's just talking like, no, it's not like a rapper taking out the persona of like a pimp over a beat. This is like a man talking in an interview to another person. So it has it's taking on a different light, so it's weird.
I'll tell you what's not a good business decision. Getting into a ring with somebody that's got nothing to lose and you got nothing to gain. What kind of a business decision is it for him to get in the ring with Jake Paul?
Oh, well, it's money.
It's money, but think about that. If Jake Paul wins, his legacy is done.
Yeah.
Done. Even if Jake Paul does okay. Even if Jake Paul just does okay.
Well, I'll tell you, I first of all, I don't think
he won't. He won't.
I strongly believe that Mayweather will pull it off. It's an exhibition match. It won't go on his record. It won't go on the record. If he got knocked down or something like that, people will be talking about that shit. But, you know, I think he cares more about the fact that he's making $50 million. You know,
Yeah.
that's what he's doing. Because why take the risk of fighting Errol Spence? That he could really lose. Pacquiao, he can really lose. No, of course you take it with some guy who has a YouTube following of 100 million, whatever the case, you know, that drives the money in. If he was to fight Errol Spence, he wouldn't make as much money. It's more risky. It'll go on his real record, you know.
Yeah.
At this point, he doesn't even care about the legacy. He's a retired fighter just trying to cash out again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a different game. It's a different game than ever. It's just, it just reminds me of like an Ali going on longer than he had to, and hurting himself physically. I feel like it's gonna leave a stain. It's already changed the way that I think of Mayweather. Yeah. It's how can I respect him if I feel like he doesn't respect boxing? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I liked who he was before better than I liked him on the way out, and now I like him even less. Yeah, you know. So it's just like I don't know. I don't know.
I gotta tell you that this cash grab doesn't bother me as much as listening to the interview I just saw, which is an old interview. Sure. It's fresh in my mind, but that, like, you know, that you know, for some reason it irked me, you know, because it was done, of course, consistently, and I was like, damn, this guy's a real piece of shit. you know, and it's funny because that was actually, I think he did this interview on the Drink Champs, and once again he was dropping some nuggets of truth and knowledge that people could take with them. You know, nothing that was, you know, in terms of like boxing, how he manipulated the situation, but when he went back to talking about like women and his beef with other rappers because of women, and it was like very like they were talking about like objects or meat, like food. It was fucking weird, you know, and unacceptable. You know what I'm saying? And shortly after that, his ex-wife gets killed. Yeah, and they're saying it's it was like I don't even know the cause of death, but she died, the mother of his children. So it's like, you know, you speak all that shit, and he, you know, you have this shit going on. It was a weird thing. It was an eerie thing, you know. Yeah. It was, you know, and then the mother of his child and had passed away. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. Especially when you got that kind of money, that kind of influence. Yeah. That's where the real dirt. You know, that's the thing that broke my heart the most about this Trump thing is it made me go, America's not different. You know, every other country, you got to be born there to feel like I'm a part of this country. America wasn't like that. America, you could be from anywhere, any skin color, any accent, even whatever. If you were in America long enough, you felt American. Right. And then I watched this Trump guy, and I just look at him, and I watch like this trail of cheating and lying, even before he became president, and how he just got away with it for 72 years just because he was rich.
How do we get better, man? Right? I mean, how do we get better? I mean, the way we are so divided now. How do we begin the healing process? I guess it's just talking about it, and you know, and maybe leaving politics out of it, like they're not everyday lives, you know, being kind. And it's something as simple as that, because he was such a supercharge for dividing, you know, with like, and people were moving around, you know, with that shit. And maybe this pandemic needed to happen so we all suffer together a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We realize, oh shit, we're all affected by this. You know, kind of like when 9/11 happened, you know, together, you know, we realized that, you know, Trump didn't do shit about this, you know, in regards to the pandemic. He mocked it. He mocked the pandemic.
He made it worse.
Time again.
Yeah, he made it worse.
he mocked wearing a mask. He made it seem like he saved millions of people because he closed the gates to China. Like he just lied throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Dismissed it. You know,
Yeah.
it's weird, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, I think it's just gonna. I think it is gonna take some time, but I think this is gonna sound kind of cold, but you know, the reason why baby boomers are called baby boomers is because there's so many of them. There was a baby boom, and Trump's generation. There's more old people in America now than there's ever been, and I think these are old people that used to be hippies, and now they've become conservative. And I don't think the planet is supposed to have this many old people. I don't think our country's supposed to have this many old people.
Like a little bit of a cleansing.
Yeah, man, we got to kill that dead wood. And I think what the best way for us to heal is when a lot of them die, because the generation coming up, the echo boomers, that's also real big. It's almost just as big as baby boomers. They call them echo boomers because they're about the same size.
So do you believe that a lot of these hippies turn to like hardcore conservatives that were really wow?
Yeah. I think that's what happens. I think sometimes you go through these life stages and changes. Even immigrants. The thing that blew my mind was immigrants voting against other immigrants. Yeah. And they said in psychology, there's a phenomenon called pulling up the ladder. Like if you got to America and it was hard, it made you feel special. But if it started getting easier, then when you got in, it makes you feel less special. It makes your citizenship feel like it's less value. It's like your property value going down or property value going up. Like it's a crazy. I don't think any of us should have a right to vote on any of this bullshit. I think any woman should be able to have an abortion if she wants to and suffer her own repercussions. I think any redneck should be able to buy any gun he fucking wants and suffer his repercussions. I think any gay person, because I don't think biologically we're supposed to have the right to tell other people whether they can or can't buy guns, whether they can or can't have an abortion, whether they can or can't marry who they want to marry. The only reason why we get to vote on that is because we have a government that wants to say, see, we're necessary. Yeah. We're necessary. So now you have to vote on these things. Why? Why do we have to vote on that? We don't have to vote on that. You're a government. You're like a McDonald's. You're a company. We pay you with our taxes and you provide us a motherfucking service. I don't go to McDonald's and have McDonald's tell me how I should act, who I should marry, what the fuck? We pay them. And a lot of us lose our lives for them when we go to wars and shit like that on behalf of the country. So what right do they have to tell us morally on top of all that? The most immoral people in the world are in government and they're trying to tell the citizens how to live a moral life. That's nonsense. Yeah. It's government that's the problem. Yeah, I'm an anarchist, man. I'm an anarchist all the way. I really am, man.
Do you feel so do you think like what was going on in Oregon, do you think that was something that could have been materialized as something like interesting? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think those are baby steps, right? Like we had, you know, when like now, you know, you could sear fish at your house, but when we first invented fire, nobody was searing fish. We were just catching shit on fire and killing people by accident. And I think that's what happened. We're not used to having this power over the government. In France, they cut off their king's head way in their history. And because of that, the French government behaves a little bit better. The French government is afraid of the people. And whenever the people are upset, the people riot. And that's a part of French culture now. But in America, we've never cut off anybody's head. We've never done that. So it's us that's afraid of the government. Yeah. And that's there's a problem in the balance of power. The people are afraid of the government, and that's no good. It should be the government that's afraid of the people. That's why I said earlier, the government's poking a sleeping bear. We're a bear. And once we decide to unite and stop believing the lies, because the lies are coming from both sides, not as bad as Republican, especially this particular party. Don't get me wrong, but there are lies coming just from all governments because we are their food. They eat us. They are vampires, and our blood, our money is their blood. They want to suck our money. They want to suck our time. They want to use us up like we're human gasoline in the political car. So fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? We just got to stop trusting them.
Yeah. Fuck, man. I'm going to, you got me hyped, man. I'm going outside. I'm on fire right now.
Dude, you know what kills me is this is the way I used to think when I was in 8th grade. And then I grew up a little bit and now I'm back. I'm back to 8th grade, bro. I have a jacket, my jean jacket. I have a patch that I had since 8th grade, and it drove my dad crazy. It was a skull with a fork and knife through it, and it said, "Eat the rich." And my dad was an immigrant. He's like, "Oh, really? Really? It's bad to be rich? That's why we came to America, for you to be poor?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, not that kind of rich. Having success is good, but when you have so much money that you think you could influence the government, that's too much money.
Yeah.
That's too much power."
Yeah. I definitely took a dip in and giving a shit about a lot of it because I need a peace of mind, man.
Yeah.
You know, getting I want to be informed, you know, and I want to be responsible in that sense, and I want to make sure that my daughter knows, you know, what's going on, and I want to, you know, I just want to stay well informed to the best of my ability. But I do find when I take in all this information, it makes me sad, man. You know, it makes me sad. And I also don't have, there's so many other things in my life that I enjoy doing that I've got to put the energy into those things. But then part of me is like, I should be putting energy into the change I want to see a little more, you know, but I like to play with my snakes and my pit bull. and hit the bag, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So I think a big part of me likes to, you know, really throw myself and distract myself with the things that I because there's a lot of things I love, you know, but there is this other side of me where it's just like, hey, this is all going around you. You should participate in one way or another. And I do to the best. I can always do more, but you know, my mental health and my well-being is the most important because then, right? I feel like it does affect me. Do you feel like that's
100%?
Like if you get too involved with you know, with whatever, you know, the ideology of, you know, change and the world you want to see, do you feel like it's filling in the void and, oh yeah, this is positive and I feel like alive doing this? Or do you feel like you're more angry? Or it depends on the day or the month.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, I'll use boxing as a metaphor, right? I feel like when this all started with Trump, I was running in and throwing knockout punches and running out of gas.
Yeah.
And now I've learned that I need my mental health the way I need my lungs. And now I'm cool with just throwing jabs and hitting and not getting hit. I think a big part of not getting hit is taking breaks when you need to take breaks, having fun with your family, having fun with your friends.
Yeah, there has to be
having gratitude.
Because a lot of us burnt out, you know, when we were seeing when people were out on the streets during the pandemic and you know Black Lives Matter and a lot of these different movements were under this umbrella. You know, I was out there and it felt good to be, you know, marching with these young people who had, you know, this sharp perspective and, you know, and they were utilizing social media to move things forward. It was nice to be a little bit older than them and just see how they're maneuvering and how they're acting. And I was part of it. I was supporting it. But I definitely felt like I was burning out quick, you know, because then I gotta make money. I gotta do what I do, which requires a lot of me physically and emotionally. Then I gotta be a father to my child, you know, a husband to my wife. And I felt like, so then you gotta step back and regroup, you know, and figure out how can I incorporate the world I want to see, like, you know, the changes during everyday life. And I think, you know, it's just being positive, keeping that close to you, not dismissing it, but, you know, trying to find that balance because
100%.
I think a lot of us burnt out, you know, off that, you know, and then the psychological effects of, you know, just being isolated and the uncertainty of the near future, you know. But I'll say this, I think all this stuff needs to happen. I think it's, you know, it all needs to happen. You know, it's a rude awakening. And I think there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this. No doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's a saying I really like in China. They used to say, "May you live in interesting times."
Hmm.
And I like that because basically they're saying you can't control anything anyway. So the only thing I'm going to wish for you is at least the time that you live in this slice of time that is your life. I hope that it's interesting. And I like that. I think there is a silver lining to it in the sense that we are living in a big transitional period of humanity.
For
Now,
sure.
and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But the thing, we don't know why we're here, man. Nobody knows why we're here. Nobody knows for sure if God is real or God is not real, or which religion is right or which religion's not right. Or if there's nobody knows. It's like we're in this escape room, and instead of working together to figure out how to get out of it, we're all starting to fight each other
Yeah.
in the middle of an escape room. It's
Yeah.
like
But
our purpose.
yeah, no, that's a good point, a good way of like looking at it. But one thing, because basically we just don't know what the fuck is going on. But I do know that I don't have tolerance for people who are not empathetic, compassionate, or like those are things that hold close to me. It's like once I see someone not being kind or like just being evil, like nah, we're gonna shut that shit down real quick because there's some evil shit going on. Now, if you're evil and on drugs, I'm a little more like tolerant. If you're just evil and you're sober, I'm like, how do you do that? Who does that?
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's what I was impressed with the endurance of evil acts, the endurance for 4 years of not one good thing, like not one. Like, here's Trump petting a puppy, nothing, just straight evil for 4. That's impressive endurance, man.
Yeah,
I
for
can't
sure.
do. I can't even when I pretend to dance bad. Every once in a while, I catch the beat.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? He couldn't even accidentally do something good. He couldn't even do it, man. Just straight evil from start to finish.
What do you? When was the last time you were in New York?
Let's see, January, March, April, May, end of May.
Do you have any plans on coming back soon?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm just getting my paperwork here so that we have flexibility, so that way it's actually going to improve my ability to do work in Europe, having my residency with my wife here, and then I'm going to bring her back to the States and going to be back in New York, hopefully, knock on wood, fingers crossed. And yeah, and then we'll go from there, and then the world opens up to us a little bit.
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you planning on going back to Overthrow? Because that was a nice surprise. I knew you from stand-up comedy. I knew of you, but then we became reacquainted, or we met each other officially when I met you at Overthrow Boxing Club. Are you still working with them from the outside in, or?
Not right now, but yeah, I mean, if things pick up, why not? I'm a huge fan of Power. I think Power Malu is like, I mean, he is the living, breathing representation of that brand. Like when I first heard about Overthrow, it's because I knew Abby Hoffman. I knew the story of Abby Hoffman, and man, that place is where that newspaper was.
Yeah.
It was these guys all essentially stopped the Vietnam War, and they used comedy to do it. You know what I mean? A lot of the protests and stuff used comedy as a weapon to like mobilize people. And so I've been a huge fan of Abby Hoffman since I was a kid. And first time I came to New York and I saw Overthrow from the outside and I saw the address, I was like, oh shit, it's the same name. And then when I saw it was a boxing gym and I kind of got to see what it was about, I was like, shit, well, this is great and it's cool. But you know what brands are like? Brands will be like, oh, we're this, we're that, but it's just thin. But then you meet people like Power and Alicia and a lot of the other people in the gym, who they hire in that gym and the culture of that gym. It really is a cultural fight club. And the people you don't have like right-wing people in there. You don't have alt-right people in there, right? It's community. And I like that. I Overthrow to me, even though I wasn't there that long, that to me is the way that's the way brands should behave. You have a responsibility as a brand. When you build something that feels like a community and a home, you kind of have a responsibility to the neighborhood. And I think that they did that over there. So I like it a lot. I totally go back.
Yeah, there's things that I'm starting to appreciate now that you just appreciate things a lot more when they're close to being taken from you, right? And it's the donation classes we did for Planned Parenthood, free classes. We had a transgender boxing class that was every Sunday.
Yeah.
We had, just a number of different things that was just open to, just all different walks of life, all the, but with the idea of like, oh, we're all fighting together, we're all in this together. And it pains me that it's a small business and it's going through it, and like small restaurants getting shut down. Restaurants have it hard now. Restaurants are getting their asses kicked because it's like they're getting yin yang. They're like, oh, you got to build outside. Now we're closing the inside. So I was like,
after they spent all that money building stuff, it's just it's crazy, man. I'll tell you, that's what I started to do more of. Remember that movie Bloodsport, when Jean-Claude Van Damme was fighting, and then that dude threw sand in his face and he couldn't see, and then he just like closed his eyes and he just felt it with his instincts.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about like life right now. Like I feel like the fake news and the alt-right and the conspiracy theorists and all this bullshit. It's like somebody's throwing sand in our eyes to keep us blind, to keep us confused. I've never been more confused than I am now, But once you close your eyes and you use your heart instead of your brain, which is probably something none of us have done for a really long time, to start to trust your heart again, you know what's right. You could tell what's right and what's wrong by energy, by the way things feel, by that caveman part of our brain that a lot of us haven't used in a long time.
You kind of reduced to going back to that primitive part of your brain and following your intuition. And that's why it comes back down to like really like bringing it down and to myself. And I always said it, and this is not something I made up, but I fucking agree with 100%, is one thing we have control of is our health, right? How we feel about ourselves, like how we conduct our business with movement, how we perceive the world internally. Like if I take good care of myself by running, working out, boxing, whatever, all of a sudden I'm building a shield that's impenetrable. I'm in like a medical state longer, and that's what we have control over. We have control of how we build up our armor, and we process this information because we're talking about it. We're irate with some of the information we're getting, but for the most part, I feel very functional and happy. I can honestly say that I feel good.
Me too.
During these troubling times, a lot of people are not. A lot of people have reduced themselves to drinking, taking drugs and succumbing to all the negative bullshit. And it's actually a special time where you're allowed to tap in because there's more time to do so and build yourself, So there's actually a lot of good that can come out of it.
Yeah. It's not often that I say I'm proud of myself. I don't do that often because I didn't have the kind of dad that would say stuff like that. So I don't say it as often to myself as I should. But this pandemic, I'm fucking proud of myself.
Yeah,
I am proud of myself because there's a couple times where mentally, I was starting to go to dark places. You know what I mean?
What time period was that, and how dark did it get?
I'd say beginning of the pandemic, because I was living alone in Flatbush in a little ass apartment by myself. I just had COVID. I didn't know what the future was like. I didn't know what money was going to be like. I didn't know what was happening. And I've had this habit ever since I was a kid. When I get real angry, I'd kind of hit myself, and I've these self-destructive tendencies to where I'm like, okay, well, I've got nothing to do. I got nowhere to go. I got a little bit of money. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. You know what I mean? The only person I'm hurting is myself. Let's go do some drugs. You know, let's just fucking check out. And I could have gone on a binge, but I didn't.
Have you ever went to like drinking or drugs as an escape, and to the point that was a
Oh
real
yeah.
problem, or it was just like,
Oh yeah.
yeah?
I was in NA. I had like a really bad cocaine problem, probably 15 years ago, and then I went into NA, and I stayed in NA for about 2 years. But NA was tough for me because I'm a comic and it was an audience. You know what I mean? I'm used to making audiences like me, and so then I had to go to a one-on-one therapist, and that was actually better for me because he could tell when I was fucking around and when I wasn't being authentic. So I have it. It's in
You
me.
can manipulate the situation in those meetings. You know, people start to like you, and you develop a relationship with someone who's not as strong, and then you end up getting high with them.
Yeah, exactly. It could happen.
You know,
I do believe in the program, though. I think the program is
sure,
great.
sure.
But for me in particular, like after that 2 years, I knew how to play the game. I knew how to manipulate the game. And so it was perfect timing for me to go one-on-one. And there was a lot of times where I think in the past, I might have like gone down and stayed down. Where this time I got down and I knew that working out would make me feel better. I knew running would make me feel better. I've done a bunch of shit that I never would. I always put off running, dude. I always put off running. I was always like, just do circuit training, just rest less in between sets. And it would work.
Yeah.
Just do intermittent fast. It would work. But I've never felt as strong as having big, healthy lungs makes me feel.
Yeah.
To be able to go 3, 4, 5 rounds and still feel good at 50.
That's road work. The road work does that. You know, you can box, you can get that bag all you want, but if you're not like running, you know, you're not going to get your wind up, and you're not going to be able to sustain. And also, you get like a runner's high. It's a fucking high you get. You know,
It's real.
State. It can be done with music, or it can be done to the rhythm of your breath. But it's a beautiful thing, man. When you start to really enjoy running and seeing everything is slowed down, you appreciate your city, you appreciate wherever you're at, the mountains, you just appreciate things more. It slows it down, and you feel one with yourself, feel present, all while moving, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, 100%. It's so weird that like I've always had to do big things to have a feeling of accomplishment. This time, I just had to stay healthy, and that was enough for me to feel like, hey, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself for staying in shape. I'm proud of myself for not getting fat, not doing drugs. Nothing wrong with being fat, whatever. But for me, when I'm in shape, I'm happy. My brain works better. My emotions work better. I'm a better husband. I'm a better friend. When I start to gain weight, it's directly connected to how I feel about me. When I stop taking care of me. So taking care of myself during this, even when I didn't want to go to the gym, like you told me today, you did a run that you really didn't want to do. I love that you said that, because those are the ones that make me feel best when I finish them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, that discipline is applied to every area of your life,
100%.
And I came into this podcast with more of an open mind and heart to talk to you. If I didn't run, something about me would have been a little more closed off, or, a little more tight, It's
100%. I'm feeling exactly.
Connected.
Yeah.
So when you, how was your family aware of the issues with the cocaine, or was it something that? Yeah.
They didn't know, but my mom knew something was up. My mom's super intuitive, but at the time I was making I was working just in advertising. I was making a lot of money. I was vice president at an ad agency. I bought a house in LA, and I had everything I was supposed to have to make my dad happy. And then my dad passed away. And for the first time I was like, okay, well, what makes me happy? Because all I was doing was chasing his approval. And then when he died, I was like, shit.
You kind of built a life to appease your father.
100%. Exactly.
And so
start to finish.
So you had like this creative drive. You're a creative dude. You're funny, and you inside that was like itching to get out, but you never really had a platform for that.
Exactly.
So that was suppressed.
Exactly. Super suppressed. And then I found myself in this house. I had a bunch of cocaine. I was buying guns. I was doing. I started to get paranoid. You know, I'd always lived in apartment buildings. All of a sudden, I was living in a house on top of the hill in Hollywood, and I could hear animals in the background, and the whole downstairs was glass. All of a sudden, I start going, "What if somebody breaks in?" And I'm by myself. I better get a gun. Oh, I better get 2 guns. I better have some guns upstairs and some guns downstairs.
Yeah.
Now I had guns upstairs, downstairs, and I was doing
paranoia. Probably
but I
a
was
lot,
doing.
a lot of money, a lot of this coke and shit. God damn.
Oh yeah, I was doing cocaine in the morning. I'd wake up and I was every day, bro. Every day when I was brushing my teeth, I'd say I don't brush my teeth, so cocaine is going to be gross. You're not going to do cocaine in the morning. That's crazy. And every morning I did it. I did coke in the morning, and then I would drive to work, and then I'd hit traffic, and then I'd do rails off in my car, or fucking like on this little dash, this little side panel.
And you were able to work like that? You went to work like that?
I did. I thought I was working fine, but people at work were they thought I was just wacky.
Yeah.
You know, I'd leave meetings, go to the parking garage, I'd do more blow. I was doing blow 6-7 times a day, every day. I was doing so much. This is when I really trusted this therapist. Is he goes, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I want to stop doing coke." He goes, "No, this week." I go, "I want to stop doing coke." He goes, "No, I don't want you to do that yet." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "I want." Yeah, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this is different." And he said, "You're self-medicating. I want to know what this Band-Aid is going on before I take it away."
Yeah.
And I was like, and I felt that. I was like, oh, I like this guy. So my goal that week was just to do cocaine 3 times.
That's wild. And it's crazy how that's what has to happen. You got to peel off the layers, you know?
Yeah, man.
So if you have someone who just like quits cocaine cold turkey, that's a ticking time bomb. You got to understand why, what brought you there, and face that. Was it, was it a parent? Was it a bad relationship? Was it abuse? So you got to stare that in the eye, because if not, you'll always go back to that in a moment of discomfort or uneasiness,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize that too. It would be the same thing. We a week or two, like. So
it's dangerous when you're a comic too. It's dangerous when you're a comic or a trainer or whatever, where people kind of look at you as just sort of a rock. Like I was always the happy guy, the funny person. So if ever I was down, all of a sudden I wasn't being me. So I used to tell this to my friend, I wasn't addicted to drugs. I was addicted to not feeling sad. And cocaine made me not sad. Anytime I felt sad, I did blow. But then I started getting sad more and more and more. And all of a sudden I was doing blow all day long just to be not sad.
Yeah.
It was wild. But I can't even imagine. Like I look back, I don't think of a younger version of me. I think of, oh, that's when I used to be that dude. Like I don't even look the same, dude. I don't even look the same, act the same, I walk different.
Yeah, it's weird, man, how your confidence comes back once you give that shit up. Because when you're doing that, man, your confidence is robbed from you. I look at pictures from like 2009, and I just look swollen, belly, and I was still working out and stuff, but it was like I was trying to do it all, It's just like different. So
what was your thing? Were you drinking a lot?
That too, all the above, the blowing and that drinking.
Yeah.
So it was like, were you drinking when you were doing that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't even feel the booze. I was drinking just to have something in my hand. But I mean, that was my girl.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be high all the time.
Were you in a relationship during that time, or were you by yourself for the most part?
The worst thing that could have happened, which was I started dating a girl that was the head bartender at Chateau Marmont.
Yeah, that's what you're all dating, bartenders.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
especially a place like that, because it's like, I mean, that's where John Belushi died, right? So it's this famous hotel where people who love drugs go, even people from London, from Sweden, from Italy, they go to Hollywood to stay there. So the drug dealers in LA would go up to her and say, hey, we know you meet a lot of people with money. How about we kick you down some samples and just, you can recommend us to people. So she came home every night with drugs, every night, free drugs.
Yeah. That is wild. You know, when you got like a connect like that stream coming in.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to finally get a hold of it? Like, was it a year? Were there relapses?
There were relapses. It took 1 year of trying and then not trying anymore. And then I went 2 years on. I got to a point where I thought I was going to die. Like I could feel my heart. You know, I remember one time doing it. I was so hot and sweating. I was alone I got naked. I started doing coke naked in my house. It was a hot summer in Hollywood. And I thought to myself, oh man, if you die and the police come into your house and they find your body like this, it's going to be embarrassing for your mom. You know, they're going to find you naked. So I looked, there was a little bit of cocaine left. So instead of stopping or flushing it down the toilet, I went in the room, put on my underwear, and then finished it.
So
in my brain was, if they find me, at least I won't be naked.
The same exact thing happened to me. I
remember,
really? Yeah, and I was like, oh, I put on my good boxers because I didn't know if I didn't know if I was going to survive that one. I remember I was like, it's gonna be embarrassing. I'm in these fucking holy Calvin Kleins with a dookie stain on it. I gotta put on some fresh ones. You know, you're
crazy,
fucking animal.
Yeah, man. And now I'm like looking at the sunset, going, "Wow, that's pretty." I never noticed sunsets before. I never noticed sunsets. But now I'm like, "Wow, this tree is beautiful."
You cringe at the sun, like, "Oh God, the sun."
Yeah, man. It was like being a vampire.
Oh, wow. So do you find that do you ever bump into people from that old life, or you never? Is that so like far removed?
There was, I don't know if it's far. They're always close by. They orbit my planet, you know. But that was the hardest part of addiction. It wasn't the drug. It was getting rid of the community, because I was an only child. And I had a Muslim dad and a Jewish mom. So all my life, I've been told I don't belong. So like my friends are, when you're an only child too, it's like your friends are your family. So it was hard to cut some of those dudes loose. And for a long time, I stayed in touch with one dude, and he was a bad dude, but he was my friend. And I tolerated it and I put up with it. And he made it harder for me to give up the harder drugs. But you know, I kept distancing myself. And then finally I went, I'm not happy when I'm around this cat. I don't need to give this person loyalty. It finally got to the point where I liked me more than I liked him. And I was like, hey man, I know this is going to sound weird, but I don't think I could be your friend anymore. And I've never had a formal male to male breakup like that, but it's what happened. I had to have like a friend breakup, which I've never done in my whole life.
How did he respond to that?
He kind of lost his shit. It was weird. It was like as if we were in a romantic relationship. He was like, for like the next 2-3 days, he's like, I can't fucking believe you. You're not who I thought you were. You're really gonna throw away a friendship after all these years. And then like he'd call me 2 days after that. Hey man, can we just talk? It was like that scene in Swingers where the dude kept calling the girl, you know?
Yeah.
It was wild. And you know, and man, the minute that dude gets sober and gets well, I'm here. I'm here for him, and I'll be the first person to give him a hug and take him out for a salad.
Yeah. Did you lose anybody? Did anyone die on you?
Yeah,
me too. I had, you know, a guy who I knew. He was actually, you know, friend, but would deal it. And you know, I'll never forget, it was the weekend of it was a Canelo fight. It might have been Canelo and Floyd Mayweather. And so every time Cinco de Mayo hits, it feels like that time. And you know, it was
Wow.
like, yeah, and it was you know, it wasn't directly, it wasn't like an overdose per se, but it was like a stem, like a brain aneurysm bust, and that's all part of that.
Yeah.
You know? And that was rattling, man. You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it's like it's sad. You know, left here with nothing, and it, you know, I keep that pain close to me to remind, you know, no one's exempt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
That's right. That's right. It's a good thing to remember. I visited a friend in Beirut one time, and they leave when there's bullet holes on the buildings and bombs in buildings, they leave it there so people remember. They don't want people to forget. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you should leave it, you know, you should remember it and be, because when I started having friends die from drugs, that's when I realized there's no HR department in life. You can't just go and complain and be like, but wait, this isn't fair. It's like, nah, when you're dead, you're dead. It doesn't matter. If you make a mistake, I mean, you can lose your life pretty easy. I'm shocked that I'm not dead. You know what I mean? So to have someone pass away from something so stupid, it's like, yeah, I'm happy that I have it in like spray painted on the wall inside my brain, because
yeah.
I'm not gonna die. I'm sure I'm gonna die from something, but I'm not gonna die from something stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever get like a temptation even after all these years?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, of course, there's times where I see it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? How it's like always kind of, you know, after all these years, and you know, like what it does, you know.
Yeah.
They're short, and they're not as powerful, you know, as when you first get clean. But man, it's funny how they creep up. They're like right on your shoulder. Like, you got get out of here.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. And then I start doing crazy stuff like, ooh, I bet I get so crazy high because I haven't done it in so long.
Yeah.
You know, I hear that voice. Starting to like, I'm really good at convincing myself, you know, like talking my way into things.
Yeah.
But now it's just not part of my DNA. You know what it was? It was when I started taking care of my body, and that was how I could battle that.
Yeah, it builds a force field. When you start taking care of your body, you become one with this stuff. You become so much stronger and confident. Like, nah, I'm not allowing that. I'm not allowing that in my jurisdiction.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the math doesn't make sense either. Am I going to have one night of feeling good and then not be able to work out for 4 days?
Yeah.
You know, and then I go, oh, so now I got to get rid of 4 days of feeling good for one night. That math starts not making sense all of a sudden.
That's right. That's exact. And that's how it always goes down.
Yeah.
That's how it always goes down.
Totally. Yeah.
And you know, it's difficult for guys, you know, who do stand up because you're on the road a lot. You know, you're out late. But it hasn't been like that. You know, it's been so manageable. But in the beginning, it was like I can't even go on the road if it's gonna be like this.
Really?
You know, in the beginning.
When do you get most tempted?
It could be on the road, you know, but you know, I never succumbed to. I mean, you know, it's been years, but I would say sometimes a summer night, you know, it could be weird, like holidays sometimes, you know, like I'll tell you, like in the beginning, I feel like, or in the middle of summer when you see people outside having drinks, cold beer, and you're walking. It's like there's something about like 6 o'clock at night, cool breeze, you know, and then it goes away because sometimes in the middle of fall, like when it starts to get a little cool, and there's something about that weather that brings me back to like when I used to hang out. I don't know why, but it's like fall, the beginning of fall, I get it, and like the middle of summer, it's like it becomes. You know, that's consistent. Those seasons, you know.
That's a trip how we attach stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I did a Armed Forces Entertainment tour one time in Afghanistan, and there was a sandstorm, and they asked us, do we want to go on the helicopter in the sandstorm or do we want to wait? But if we wait, we're not going to perform for this one big group of soldiers. So we're like, no, we'll go, you know, because we felt bad. We wanted them, you know, they'd been waiting for us, but it was a little bit dangerous. So I said to one of my friends, I said, "Oh, I'm going to put on this Beastie Boys album that I haven't listened to in a long time. I've been on a Beastie Boys kick this whole week." And then the one of the soldier, our point of contact guy, goes, "Don't do that." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Don't play an album that you like, because if something goes wrong in a helicopter, you'll never listen to that album again."
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh," and then it got real. I was like, "Oh shit."
that's funny. Wow.
Yeah.
How
We
many
attach
times?
stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. How many times did you go on those? What's it, USO tour?
Armed Forces Entertainment. I did 2 of them.
Yeah, those
Going
are
to
fun.
Afghanistan. They are fun. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Have you ever
Talk
had a
about a
weird,
brotherhood.
have you ever had a weird situation performing abroad?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, like if the military tours or just abroad?
No, just abroad, because I know you've performed like all over the world.
Yeah, all over Europe. I'll tell you, dude, it is, I feel more comfortable performing in Europe, Sweden, England, Luxembourg, France, even, than I did going into places, some of the towns in the Bible Belt in America. I had I felt more foreign in Arkansas than I did
See that
in
giving you, your
England.
politics and stuff. Yeah, I can see that shit.
Yeah.
Have you ever like been faced with that sort of adversity going into your political shit?
Oh
Has
yeah, dude, I had death threats. I got death threats. Yeah, I even had a dude at a comedy club make up stuff about me. He said he heard me on more, and that I said some anti-American stuff. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from my booking manager saying, "Hey, did you say this on the radio?" And I go, "Look, I'm all." Even though I did morning radio with them, I'm sure there's a copy of the show. You could listen to the show. They listened to the show, and what the dude said wasn't even, there was nothing. He made it up. It was obvious the dude had completely made it up, And I was like, wow, this cat doesn't even know me. And just because my middle name is Muhammad, he wants to fuck with my money. He wants to fuck with my job. He
wow.
wants to make me feel unwelcome. And it was devastating, dude, for all my life, I believed America's the best country in the world. All my life, I felt like America was the most free in the world. And then as I got older and I started performing comedy in other countries and I started seeing more freedom, being able to talk about anything you want without anybody getting mad, all of a sudden America didn't feel that free anymore. And all of a sudden I wasn't coming home to the best country in the world. I was coming home to one of the top countries. But
Wow.
I felt better performing in London. I think London has an amazing scene. I think Berlin has an amazing scene where you could talk about deconstruct religion, sex, drugs, and people don't get offended because they understand it's art. That's what we're trying to do. We're like funny philosophers. We're just trying to figure it out, and our intention is not to hurt. You know what I mean? Our intention is not to hurt. And they care about that here. It's like, what's the energy behind it? There's PC culture here too, don't get me wrong. But in America, there's PC culture and there's this hero culture where like, oh, if you say something I don't like, well, now I want to fight you.
Yeah,
Like that stuff that our TV shows are bleeding into our personalities too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you're right. And I think it's, I never heard that worded that way, but there is that hero thing. Like, yeah, fucking. It got to the point where, if you say it sometimes it got so bad that if I see it, sometimes I see American flag on a car, I'm like, oh, it's one of those motherfuckers.
Exactly.
And
But
that's
if
bad.
you think about it,
That's the country. That's the country's flag.
Yeah.
I shouldn't feel that way. But almost all the time is that motherfucker in there. Yeah, fuck with us. Burn my flag, I'll kick your ass. Like already, like, no way, I'm just in a Walmart here. You don't have to wear this shirt.
Yeah. But I mean, look at the stuff we're watching all day long. Every time we're watching stuff on TV, America is the biggest dealer of stories about people with adult problems solving them with little kid solutions. You know what I mean? Like Breaking Bad. Here's this dude, he's like, I got cancer. My wife's cheating on me. My kid's handicapped. Oh, I'll sell meth. What? Like the other dude, my daughter got kidnapped. I will find you. What? You're gonna find him. You call the police. Every American story, every violence is always the answer. Violence is always the solution. Of course, it makes for a better movie. But I mean, it should come with warning labels like cigarettes. Like, this is not real life. People will hit you. People will fight you back. This is not a game. Real life is not a game. This is a story.
Right.
We need to have, because people are that dumb now. We need to put those ugly pictures that are on a box of cigarettes. You need to have, at the end of Rambo movies, you need to have a picture of a nerd with a black eye going, "Don't get stupid."
Yeah. Don't get
this could happen to you.
It actually happen to you. Wow. Man,
yeah, I told my friend. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I appreciate that. That observation is true. Like, people need to be made aware that
100%.
there's repercussions to your behavior, motherfucker. Don't get twisted. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was saying, I told my friend that testosterone should be treated like a controlled substance, right? Like, if you eat, you can't go swimming you got to wait half hour before you swim, but you could watch a UFC fight and then go straight to a nightclub. And it's like, no, you should wait 30 minutes because you got all this testosterone for you can't watch fights, and you can't go from fuck energy to fight energy, or fight energy to fuck energy. You got to take a break. You got to clean the palate. You got like go eat something. Don't watch any violence, and then go talk to ladies. But you can't. We need a break in between. We got to figure out how to deal with our testosterone, because I think there's something up with it. I think there's something going wrong with the effects of MMA.
Honestly, I don't even know anymore because I haven't been out in so long. On the internet, I just haven't been out. I don't know if motherfuckers are going to behave that way.
Yeah,
or
man.
Like, I missed you. I don't even know, Because it's been so long since I've been with people.
It feels weird, dude. We're
fuck?
definitely pack animals. We're supposed to be around each other. So I can't wait for this to be over, because I miss people.
But what do you predict? How long do you think it's going to be?
I think the vaccine's real, and I believe in it. I believe in science. I've always believed in science. And here's my silver lining, and here's my optimism. My optimism is that this has happened before. It happened in 1918. So we know that this happened in 1918. And if we want to know what happens after this, well, what happened after 1918? The Roaring 20s happened after 1918. People went outside more. Fashion went through the roof. Performance went through the roof.
Yeah, I mean,
jazz.
Brewing shit up. People are cooking up stuff, man. It's a lot of creative people getting that shit ready, and I think there's gonna be a boom after this for sure.
I do too. I think a big boom is coming. I think there's going to be a time where people are going to start to appreciate life again, and I think we're, after we get out of this, there's probably going to be a period where we're still dizzy, trying to find our way. But I think a lot of people are going to choose life over money. They're going to choose love over stress, and choose experiences over materialism. And I think all of that is good. And it's selfishly, as a comedian or a performer or an artist, I think that's going to be great for us. So yeah, I'm excited. I think really good things are coming, and I think we deserve really good things to come.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. I mean, that's beautifully said. Do you still have that podcast
thanks.
with your mom? Because I remember you had that. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, man. No, we don't.
What is it?
We're on pause. It was called "They Tried to Bury Us," and it's still up.
The episodes are still up and everything.
Yeah, the episodes are still up, and we're going to figure out something to do with it, because it got really popular really quick. Basically, it was our response to all the negative news about immigrants. Anytime they talked about immigrants in the news, it was just people doing shit illegal, people being bad, people being in trouble. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to argue that. I'm just going to show them the other side.
Right.
And so every episode was in 3 parts. It was, what was life like in the country you came from? Why did you want to come to America, basically? The second part was what's been the hardest thing about being in America, and we always ended with what's been the best part of being in America. And it was so dramatic, dude. Everything from people being smuggled in the back of trucks by coyotes to people in Iran being smuggled in trucks with dudes with guns. I mean, it was friends from Ukraine, a dude from Moldova where they had to lie to their neighbors and on their way out of the apartment.
Different guests come in and tell their stories.
Yeah, all people that I met through comedy. It's called They Tried to Bury Us.
They Tried to Bury Us. And it's under your name.
Yeah. And it's from the old saying. It's a Mexican civil rights quote. It was, they tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds, which is a quote I've always loved. So yeah, and it's dope. It's a great podcast. We still get people emailing and talking about it. So I want to bring it back in some way, shape, or form for sure.
That's dope. That's dope, man. Yeah, I was always intrigued by it. I'm actually gonna give that a listen, man, because I wanted to, and then it kind of slipped my mind. So I'm glad.
Sure. Yeah, the first one I did was my mom. Her story is still my favorite.
What was it? What was the story?
Oh, it's a long story, but just like she had, I don't know anybody that's had a harder life than my mom. Like her sister committed suicide, but by lighting herself on fire. What? And so, yeah, man. And so my mom was in the hospital watching her sister die for 5 days, and nobody else was in the room. It was basically, she was in love with a guy that was Muslim, and she had converted to Islam, which is a big deal. So her family had disowned her. And then the guy said, "Are you crazy? Why did you change religion? I only told you I couldn't be with you because of that, because I'm actually married."
Oh, so, God damn, shotgun blast.
Yeah, man, shotgun blast for sure. So she lit herself on fire. And my mom was a 15-year-old girl and went into the hospital, got her into the best room, from a bad room to a good room, talked to the guy and said, "You need to make sure that she's buried in a nice place, in a good place," because her family had disowned her and wouldn't bury her. So it was a 15-year-old girl that went through that kind of trauma. Wow. And her mom died when she was really young, and her dad went blind from diabetes and stress. And he kind of had a nervous breakdown when his wife died. And so this dude had these two little girls, and he kind of just gave them to their grandmother, and they were raised by their grandmother, and she had a hard life. And instead of coming out of that being an angry, bitter person, she's like the happiest, kindest, most loving person I know.
One thing, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's very consistent about you, but your love for your mom has always been apparent. Like, you know, every time I speak to you, I feel like we always manage to talk about your mom a little bit. And which is dope. And I'm super appreciative of that, because I feel the same way about my mom. You know, I love my mom. You know,
that's great
that she gave me, and the person she is. So we're very fortunate to have those people in our lives. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Do you ever have her on your pod?
No, she doesn't want to do it. She says she's too shy, because she actually had she listens to the podcast, and one day I had mentioned, I forgot what episode it was, but she didn't like what a guest, or maybe someone said something about women. And it was done in jest. I know that, because I don't have any talk on here where it's like anything more or anything, bashing women. But my mother, she's a feminist. She worked for years. She worked for the Sanctuary for Battered Women. So
wow.
Yeah, she doesn't fuck around with that shit. So she got upset. She got annoyed by something that I don't know if it was that I said or a guest said. I said, what? How about you come on the pod and we talk about your work and everything? I think it'd be interesting to have that dialogue. And she just said, "I'll get back to you," but she's not interested. She's too shy.
She's like, "Have your people call my people."
Yeah. But But sometimes we say something. This platform lends itself to all sorts of conversations, and sometimes the conversations are dirtbag, and I'm like, "Oh, my mom might hear this shit." Do you ever feel like that? Did your mom listen to any of your work?
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, man. I always get freaked out, but it's funny. Like our relationships change because of comedy. Like I think our relationship is so much closer because she's seen me say things on stage or heard people, and then she's asked me about it, and we've had conversations that I don't think we would have had if I didn't talk about it on stage.
Yeah, I think it's super. It could be uncomfortable, but it's super important.
Yeah, and she's definitely. I mean, I was not a mama's boy growing up. I kind of pushed away from my family big time. But my mom was, she always was just love. She was all love. But I pushed away from her for a long time. I almost didn't respect her opinion because she gave me unconditional love. So I cared more about my dad's opinion. You know what I mean? He was like Simon Cowell on America's Got Talent. Like I cared more about his opinion because he was an asshole.
Yeah.
Where I knew she was always going to be good, but it wasn't until we started having these really deep conversations. And dude, when I had her on the podcast and I got her life story, there were things she was telling me that I never knew on the podcast. I mean, it breaks my heart. The first episode I had her on, she cried. Like,
you were hearing that story for the first time? Oh, you didn't know prior? Wow.
She talked about stuff that she'd never told me before. And I think that's what happens sometimes when you immigrate to a country. You're so worried about fitting in that you don't take the time to ask your parents about what was the road like behind us. Yeah. And when we got to sit down and have like a real conversation about it, and I got to hear about all the stuff she went through and all the stuff that she did, like we just became so much more close because it's almost like now she's my friend. Before she was my mom, now she's my friend. Even if she wasn't my mom, she'd be my friend. She's a dope lady.
You're a little bit mature, and you're able to take that in a little better. You're not a young, selfish kid. Now you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is what went on, and you're able to appreciate, her story. When you're young, man, sometimes you're just dismissive to the story.
Absolutely, yeah. Now I'm proud of being from her now. Before I'd be like, oh, mom, let's go to the beach.
Right.
Let's go to the beach. I'll go sit over there. You sit over here. Now I'm like, shit, man, I'm proud to be from her.
That's a beautiful thing, man. You're the man. I appreciate you doing the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, brother.
We wrap this up.
You just Instagram. If follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna be back in the city soon, and I can't wait to see you. It's gonna be good to see you. I can't wait to see New York. I miss New York like crazy, and I'm excited. I think we got good things coming.
Yeah, I agree, man. What's the Instagram account again?
Oh, sorry, it's Tamer Kat. It's TAMERKAT.
Perfect, man. You're the man.
Kat. Enjoy, you, brother. Thanks for having me.
When you touch back down in New York.
Right on, fam. All right, brother. See you soon.
Peace.
All right. Peace.